Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm your host Ian, and today we're diving into a key piece of Canada's housing puzzle, the CMHC's 5% down payment rules. If you're a first-time buyer or just curious about how government policies shape our real estate market, this one's for you. We'll cover the history behind the Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation and why it was created in the first place, then break down the economic effects of allowing such low down payments, and finally, we'll look at how this rule has sparked a wave of first-time home buyers entering the market. My goal here is to give you a solid grasp of how these elements tie into broader Canadian economics, history, politics, and especially how they relate to real estate. Let's get started. First off, let's go back in time to understand what inspired the creation of the CMHC. Picture this. It's the end of World War II in 1945. Thousands of Canadian soldiers are returning home after years of fighting overseas. But there's a massive problem. There's simply not enough housing to go around. During the war, construction had ground to pretty much a complete halt because resources were funneled into the war effort. Families were crammed into overcrowded spaces, and makeshift solutions like wartime housing projects weren't cutting it for the long term. The federal government saw this crisis coming, and they knew they had to act fast to prevent social unrest and support these veterans who had sacrificed so much. So, on January 1st, 1946, the Central Mortgage and Housing Corporation was born, later renamed the Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation in 1979. It was essentially the successor of the Wartime Housing Corporation, which had been a temporary fix during the conflict. The main inspiration? To provide affordable housing for returning veterans and kickstart a national housing program that would stabilize the economy and society. At its core, CMHC was designed to make homeownership more accessible by insuring mortgages, which encouraged banks to lend to people who might not have qualified otherwise. This wasn't just about bricks and mortar. It was a political and economic move to rebuild the country post-war, boost employment through construction, and foster a sense of stability for families. Over the decades, its mandate grew to include everything from social housing initiatives to research on urban planning. But that original spark, addressing a severe housing shortage amid a population boom, set the tone for how Canada approaches real estate policy today. Now, fast forward to one of CMHC's most influential tools, the 5% down payment rule. This is part of their mortgage loan insurance program, which kicks in when buyers put down less than 20% on a home. Essentially, if you're buying a house for $500,000 or less, you only need 5% down. That's $25,000 instead of a traditional 20%, which would be $100,000. For homes between $500,000 and $1.5 million, thanks to recent updates in September 2024, it's 5% on the first $500,000 and 10% on the rest. Anything over $1.5 million isn't eligible for CMHC insurance, so you would need to at least the 20% down for any of those. The insurance premium, usually 2.8 to 4% of the loan amount, depending on your down payment, of course, gets added to your mortgage, but it protects the lender if you default, not you as the buyer. Now, this rule didn't just appear overnight. It really evolved from the 1950s onward, with the minimum down payment gradually dropping to 5% by the 1990s to make buying easier amid rising prices. It's a direct extension of CMHC's founding mission, democratizing homeownership. But like any policy, it has ripple effects on the economy, which brings us to our next point. Let's talk about the economic impact of these low down payments. On the positive side, they make homeownership way more attainable, especially in a country where house prices have skyrocketed. Think about it. Saving for a 20% down payment in places like Toronto or Vancouver can take years, even decades, people's entire lives. They would never make the amount of money needed to put a down payment for that. By dropping it to 5%, though, CMHC opens the door for more Canadians to build wealth through property. It stimulates the construction industry and pumps money into related sectors like furniture, renovations, and real estate services. This can lead to more job creation and overall economic growth. In fact, recent changes to extend insurance to $1.5 million homes and allow 30-year amortization for first-time buyers are expected to boost demand and help sustain a housing market and its recovery in 2025, especially as interest rates fall. But then there's the flip side, and it's important to be honest about it. Low down payments mean higher loan to value ratios, which translates to bigger mortgages and more household debt. In Canada, we've seen mortgage debt climb steadily, and if economic uncertainty hits, like job losses or rising rates, it could lead to more delinquencies and financial stress for families. This increased demand can also inflate these housing prices, creating a feedback loop where homes become even less affordable over time. We've witnessed this in the past decade where easy access to credit contributed to bubbles in major cities. Plus, those CMHC premiums added to your costs for a 5% down payment, you're looking at about 4% of the loan tacked on, which might wipe out some of the initial savings. Politically, it's a balancing act. Governments want to encourage ownership to build middle-class stability, but they risk over-leveraging the economy. Remember the 2008 financial crisis south of the border? Well, low down payments played a role there, though Canada's stricter regulations have kept us more insulated. That said, one of the clearest outcomes of the 5% rule has been a surge in first-time home buyers. Before this policy really took hold, entering the market required hefty savings, often sidelining younger Canadians or those from lower income backgrounds. Now, with just 5% down, combined with programs like the first-time home buyer incentive, which can add government shared equity to your down payment, more people are jumping in. A 2025 CMHC survey showed a notable uptick in first-time buyers, driven by these accessible terms and falling interest rates. First-time buyers are the group most likely to use insured mortgages, and this surge has helped sustain market activity even during slumps. For example, in high-cost areas, the recent expansion to $1.5 million with the insured homes means a first-time home buyer could put down as little as $100,000 on a $1 million property, with 5% on the first half and 10% on the second, of course, making urban living more feasible. This has political implications too. Governments use these tools to appeal to millennials and Gen Z voters frustrated with renting forever. But it also creates bottlenecks. If too many enter without enough supply, prices rise, and affordability worsens for the next wave. So taking a look at all of this, the CMHC's 5% down rule is a double-edged sword rooted in post-war necessity. It was born from a desire to house veterans and was evolved to tackle modern affordability crises. But unfortunately, it does amplify both opportunities and risks in our economy. Don't forget to hit that like button if this video helped. Subscribe for more deep dives into Canadians real estate, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.